all the time. Powered by Arkansas, for Arkansas. The John Nabors Show is live from the Natty State Sports Studios.
And welcome into the John Nabors Show here live from Natty State Sports Studios. Appreciate everybody listening in and watching in on this beautiful day here in the great state of Arkansas. I am your host, John Nabors, and appreciate each and every one of you for making us a part of your afternoon this afternoon as we are halfway through the week, officially Wednesday. So you made it, halfway point. Now you're going to be in the final stretch moving forward. So we're going to talk about a few things, some updates in some basketball and some baseball. Also some crazy news going on in SEC baseball too. And we'll also have another Razorback hypothetical to dive into. But I wanted to start off the show today and discussing something that I talked about yesterday and some people were pretty down on me for because it came off as very negative. Talking about, well, I guess was it yesterday? Yeah, it was yesterday, where we're talking about how tough it is to be a Razorback fan and how it's tough to be a Razorback fan right now, given the circumstances of Tennessee now winning a College World Series title and everything. And people took it as a very negative, very Debbie Downer type of show and segment. And you know what? I understand that. I felt like it was, like it needed to be, because there's nothing really, awesome to really talk about from this past year. And seeing it in baseball especially, it's I always like to change the lyrics of the victory song that Arkansas sings after games of, oh, Lord, it's hard to be hopeful whenever things go down. But here's the thing. I actually believe that there are reasons to be optimistic. I really do. And I was discussing this actually with one of the former Razorback baseball players the other night about the situation with Dave Van Horn, where, you know, he hasn't had the title and other guys are getting titles too. And it's frustrating. I get it. I totally get it. But it's not just so impossible, so far-fetched that Dave Van Horn and Arkansas break through at some point and win a title. We know they should have already. They didn't. But there's no reason to believe or no reason to be surprised if that was to happen again. And finally catch a foul ball, to win it. It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, you're still one of the premier programs in all of baseball. You're still putting out a lot of talent, recruiting at a high level. You're winning the SEC. You're doing great in the regular season, but you got to do the postseason. Like, that's a fact. Like, that's what it's measured about. You have to do that. But you're at least doing things that you need to be doing in order to be in that position. I mean, Tennessee was the team that was the number one overall seed and won it all this year. All right. So obviously what they did in the regular season mattered a little bit because they won it all. It worked out for them. But even not just in baseball, but in basketball too. Basketball, you're going to be great this year. Like, we all know how exciting that is. We've talked about it with John Calipari numerous amount of times, and how there's no reason to believe this team is not going to do just next level amazing things. I mean, the expectation is going to be through the roof. People are going to be having Arkansas a preseason top 10, top 15 team. You got big matchups. You got a lot of attention being paid to you. You got a lot of big time players that are going to be exciting to watch. You're going to have offense that's going to be able to be explosive. I mean, it's going to be so fun. We all know that. And it has to be, and you're hoping it is, because last year was pretty crappy. Like, other than you winning the Duke game, there wasn't a lot of redeeming moments of last year. It was all off. You had a losing season. You didn't make it a postseason play. Players, it seemed off. Attitude seemed off. Just everything seemed off. It wasn't enjoyable. It wasn't fun. They weren't a fun team to cover. They weren't a fun team to talk about. They weren't a fun team to watch. And then we all know it kind of imploded there at the end, especially Muss leaves for USC, and everyone's freaking out. They're like, what in the world's going on? And that was it. And then Cal comes in, and now it's all switched on a dime. Like, it is a complete and total new feeling heading into basketball season next year. So you're going to be great in baseball, and there's no reason to believe that you can't be a better team in the postseason next year than what you were this past year. Because honestly, it's kind of hard to do. You went 1-2. But if I was to tell you that Arkansas made Omaha next year, would you be surprised? I wouldn't think so. So Keep that in mind. And then in basketball, you had a losing season this last year. I don't think anybody believes that this team is going to be worse than what they were last year. No question. There's no way. It's like literally an impossibility for this team, knowing what they have and talent-wise and coaching and all that, for them to be worse. They're not going to be. They're going to make the NCAA tournament. At worst, they're going to make the NCAA tournament as like a 8 seed. At worst. Like doomsday, oh man, this team's not any good. That's the worst they can do. So you're already going to be improved and already going to be better. But the big question becomes, of course, is football. Because you know who your team is. It's not like you're just adding a bunch of guys right and left out of the transfer portal right now, currently. You have the same coach in place in Sam Pittman. You made some improvements last year, but not in the right ways. And there was a disastrous end to the year. You went 4-8. You had one SEC win. And it wasn't enjoyable to watch. It wasn't enjoyable to cover. It wasn't enjoyable at all. You had a lot of close calls, but close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. You didn't get the win. And you went 4-8. And that really was a bad look whenever Sam Pittman's in his 4th year and he keeps getting worse every single season. So, luckily for Arkansas, the Bobby Petrino hire of him as the offense coordinator has given hope, given a light, given just a little bit of a handout saying, hey, if you're looking for something, here you go. Now, what is that worth? What is that going to be worth? How amazing can that be? Will it be? Well, I guess that's why I have to play it out. We'll have some predictions and expectations. I mean, SEC Media Days is in a couple of weeks. I believe that Arkansas is going to be one of those teams that's probably picked to finish out of the 16 teams, 14th, maybe 15th. So no one's going to believe in you. No one's going to be hyped about it. No one's going to be excited about you. But are you a team that's going to be better than what you were a year ago? I believe so. I don't think they're going to double their wins and go 8-4. I'm not saying that. But will they go to a bowl game? I think so. I do. Will they get maybe 7 wins? Yeah, I think it's possible. Whether you want to believe it or not, the schedule is actually easier. According to the ESPN FBI, Arkansas doesn't even have a top 10 difficult schedule in the country. It's like almost weird seeing that every single year Arkansas had the number 1 or number 3 or whatever, but does not even have a top 10? Interesting. Doesn't mean it'll go, it's like an easy schedule by any stretch. But you have 3 very winnable non-conference games. You have a road game against Oklahoma State early in the year, which who knows how that's going to turn out. It could be a coin flip. Your toughest SEC games are at home in Fayetteville. You have bye weeks coming off of 2 of those toughest opponents. LSU, you have a bye week before you play them. In Texas, you have a bye week before you play them. You've owned Ole Miss at home. Tennessee, you haven't played in a while, but the last time you played them, you beat them. I know it's different, but still could be something there. You only have 3 true road games, and those 3 true road games are against teams that probably aren't going to be elite in Mississippi State, Missouri, and Auburn. They'll be good. Maybe some of them can be, but I don't think any of them are going to be contending for an SEC title. And then you have A&M and Arlington, which I hate that game. And it's the last time you have to play in Arlington at Jerry World and AT&T Stadium. Thank goodness. But you've been close in every one of those games. I know, again, close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. I get it. But they have a new coach in Elko who knows what he's going to look like. He could be a disaster. He could be a success. He could be average. Who really knows? A&M, it doesn't make any sense what they do. But Bobby Petrino, whenever he's been in that game as a coach, has won every single time. He won last year as the offense coordinator of A&M and was 3-0 in that game against A&M when he was the Razorback head coach. So maybe there's something to that. There's your positivity. But the point is that you have a more favorable schedule than what you've had. You got Bobby Petrino, which you know the offense is going to be vastly improved. You got a lot of additions on the offensive side of the ball that are going to make your team better. Taylon Green, I think, is going to be really good and really going to change a lot of people's minds about him. You got all your wide receivers back that you needed back. You got a great tight end and Luke Has back. You got running backs that are deep, that have experience, that could be monstrous. You got an offensive line, which was so bad last year that they went out and got new guys to replace them this year that are actually in really good shape. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say they're the best offensive line in the SEC, but they're not going to be the worst. I love the addition of an Addison Nichols and Fernando Carmona and Blackstock from Michigan State. Like, those are nice additions that other teams wanted in the SEC. And with Eric Mateos being the new offensive line coach, I think you're going to see some changes there for the better. And Sam Pittman, of course, has been very much more involved this year, at least in the spring ball, than I've ever seen him at the offensive line. And so I think it's going to be improved. Defense, there's some questions, but you still have some players back. But the point is, will you be better than 4-8? Yes. Yes. If I was to bet on it, if you were to say, John, I bet you right now, $10, that this team will not do any better than 4-8, I'll take you up on it. I'll take you up on it because I think they get at least, at worst, 5 wins. But if they get 5 wins, Sam Pittman still gets fired. Like they have to make a bowl game this year. They have to make a bowl game this year. If they don't, changes are coming. It's just the reality. And also, one of the things I like to bring up, just to kind of mess with people, there's still really only been one coach in Razorback history that has survived back-to-back losing seasons, and that was Houston Nutt. Houston Nutt went 5-6 and 4-7 in respective years in 2004 and 2005. Kept his job. Next year, came back, bounced back in big time. But I don't see that being the case anymore these years. That's just not the case anymore. Sam Pittman has to get a winning record. He has to at least get to a bowl game. He does that. We'll see what the future holds. We'll see if he stays on. Maybe he resigns. Maybe he retires. There could be a lot of factors that go into it. But I'm rooting for Sam Pittman. I really am. I'm rooting for him. I'm rooting for them to be great. I'm rooting for them to do the right things. I'm rooting for them to put it all together. I'm rooting for them to actually be the Razorback football team that we all love, that we all know, that we all respect, and that can make the games fun. Give me that. There was nothing more miserable than watching that team last year in most of those games where they look completely and totally incompetent at offense. Like defense, you don't want to be incompetent about anything, but it is so much uglier when you're incompetent at offense than it is defense. Because at least with defense, it's a lot more difficult to have an elite defense in college football, especially the modern era. It's so offensive driven. So like the game is set up for you as an offense to be better at that than defense. And when you're getting stuffed every single time on short yardage situations, when you're scoring 3 points in a regular season regulation game against an SEC opponent at home, when you're 3-and-out machines like crazy, there is nothing fun about that. Nothing whatsoever. And I'm sorry, you may disagree, but with Bobby Petrino, he ain't going to be that. Will it be as good of an offense of 2010, 2011? No, I'm not predicting that. But it ain't going to be a joke. It ain't going to be the laughing stock of the SEC. It's not going to be something where you look at it and just be like, ew, what is that? It's going to be better. So think about that, folks. Yeah. Was I down on everything yesterday? Of course. Did it suck to see Tennessee win a College World Series title? Of course. But you do have reasons to be excited about the upcoming seasons, in the major sports at least. You do have reasons. There is a chance, and I even say a very high chance, I'd say about an 85, 90% chance that each and every sport of the major sports, the big three, each one of them are going to be better, if not significantly better than what they were this past season. So if that happens, it's not too bad. It's not too bad at all. You can deal with that. You can live with that. I can live with that. I think the American people can live with that. And who knows, maybe you have a 2021 replication. Maybe you have something to where all three of them just really, really blow up and do some great things. I don't see why not. You got the tools, you got the talent, you got the schedule. You just got to do it. You got to execute it. You're set up for success. So be successful. Be optimistic. Be excited. It's not always going to be the worst thing of your life. At least it better not be. Better not be. Folks, got to tell you about our friends over at Superior Contracting and Development. They're licensed residential and commercial contractors specializing in all aspects of home building as well as remodeling. They handle everything from fencing to drainage to additions and remodeling your existing structure all the way to land development and ground-up construction. So you got to call them today for your interior and exterior construction or remodeling needs. It's that time of year where you may be wanting to make those changes to your home. You want to buy a new home. You see all these rates. You see how crazy it is out there. And nobody's really wanting to buy a home right now. So don't. Just remodel your new one or your current one. Go out there and get a pool. It's really hot outside. Wish I had a pool outside my house, but they can help you out with that, though. No matter what it is, they got you covered. So check them out today. You can call them at 501-453-3053. That's 501-453-3053. You can check out their new website over at superiorcontractingar.com for all of the help there as well. But no matter what it is, do it with Superior Contracting and Development at 501-453-3053.
1, 2, 3, let's go!
All Natty, all the time. Powered by Arkansas, for Arkansas. The John Nabors Show is live from the Natty State Sports Studios.
All right, it is now time for your Arkansas update presented by Davis & Garrett Insurance, your independent auto owners insurance agency, securing what matters the most. And Arkansas got a few pieces of good news, at least some interesting news when it comes to basketball and for baseball for some of the additions. I will talk about the basketball one because I feel like this needs to be addressed. I feel like most people probably know this, but it still needs to be something that is officially addressed, where they were able to get a couple of commitments from, you're going to call it the transfer portal or whatever. But one of the players is a Village Christian High School from California, Jaden Carol. Dude, I'm telling you, I'm terrible with this. Caroletta. Sounds great to me. But yeah, he's officially coming on over to Arkansas, and they've been able to add him into the mix. So he's a 1,000-point scorer for the Crusaders. He's 6'6", 180 pounds. He does not have a national ranking at this point in time, but still he is a player that will be joining Arkansas and the Razorback basketball program. But he's also not the only one that's going to be joining the Razorbacks, because another player decided to take his talents to play for Calipari, and it is Melo Sanchez. I mean, anytime you got the name Melo, right, it's always going to be a big thing. But you got him deciding to join over to Arkansas out of the transfer portal. And he played for Hawaii Pacific, which is a D2 school, the past 2 seasons. He averaged 14.5 points, nearly 5 rebounds, and nearly 2 assists while shooting 36, 35, and 80 across 29 games last year. That's according to 24/7 Sports. So here's the thing. You added these players, and you're like, oh, okay. You added a kid that's not even ranked on any of the D1, D2, D3, any of those levels, and not even on Rivals or on 24/7 Sports. And then you have another guy that is coming out of the portal from a D2 school. Doesn't look like anybody wanted him. Yep. Why would you want to do that? Well, I think it's pretty simple. I think it's very simple, actually. It's because these guys are going to be on scholarship, by the way. Well, I should have mentioned that. But they're not going to be walk-ons. They're going to be scholarship players, which is probably another reason why you're raising your eyebrows like that. Here's the deal, though. Calipari's already mentioned that he's like, I want 8-9 players. Like that, they don't want more than that. And does that mean they're going to go with walk-ons? What are they going to do? Well, looks like Lawson Blake's going to stay on the team, which is great. Who knows? Maybe he'll get a scholarship out of it all. I hope he does. But then you throw in a guy like Melo and the other guy, and then you basically have walk-on caliber type players coming in, but they're getting scholarships. And they're, from what I would probably guess, they're not going to be players that are demanding NIL, that are demanding playing time, that are demanding this, that, and the other. And if they don't get it, they're going to transfer. They're going to be bad for the team, bad for chemistry, everything like that. They're probably guys who are just like, man, I'm just happy to be here. Shoot. And be on scholarship at Arkansas under Calipari? You kidding me? Yeah, sign me up, whatever. I'll do whatever you ask of me. I'll be there. 100%. So that's probably the approach that, I would go along with. And it's a win-win for everybody. Because again, you shouldn't have to count on your 10, 11, and 12th player to contribute heavily to the team this year in order to be the difference between winning and losing. That's not how college basketball really is in the grand scheme of things. Some systems may call for that. Some places may call for that, but that's not how Cal and that's not how Arkansas does it. I said from the get-go, I like the approach he's having from having just 8 to 9 players being the contributors and figuring it out on the practice floor. And then whoever ends up playing, whoever ends up being the best players out there, let them play. Roll it out and see what happens. So I'm in favor of that. So those players that got added, again, are they going to excite you in any sort of way? Probably not, but it still makes sense for Arkansas to go to that route. So some other news, though, that happened to transpire is that Arkansas got some new players from the transfer portal in baseball, too. Fresno State's Rocco Pepe love that name, as well as the Oregon State right-hand pitcher, Aiden Jimenez, both committing to Arkansas. So they're continuing to add to the portal, continuing to add to those things too. And, again, people can say whatever they want about whether or not it's going to be good, whether, where their mindset's at. Because there's a lot of people that are still like mad, still don't want to even talk about baseball, still don't even care about baseball, anything like that. But again, I'm kind of fine with it at this point. But Dave Van Horn did meet with the media today. And a few things that he said that was of note that I thought was pretty fascinating, at least. He said that first off, that he said he doesn't feel like guys want to leave Arkansas. So that any of those transfers that they're expecting, he feels like most of them are all in and staying in Arkansas. Also, that he said that they wanted to bring in players that aren't all about the money, which is obviously very important. But one of the most interesting updates, I would say, from what Dave Van Horn had to say to the media. First off, he said about Tony Vitello in Tennessee. He's like, I really appreciate it. It's bittersweet because they won it all and we didn't. For what we do here, we're trying to develop players and have these guys go out and have success and have a career. So gave some love there. But also, where he's talking about Kendall Diggs, he said he had a complete tear in his left labrum following the slide against McNeese. Diggs continued to play all season. Dave Van Horn gave him a lot of credit for his toughness. So when I saw that and I read that, I was like, man, okay, so maybe that explains a little bit of Kendall's issues. He also alluded to the fact that there's a possibility he's like, I'd love to coach him again. So maybe there's a possibility Kendall Diggs comes back and, does what he needs to do to heal up and everything. But I don't know. I'm not trying to be critical. And there's probably a lot more to this than even I understand. But man, I feel like this has happened a couple of times now where players battled through injury, which I appreciate and applaud the toughness. But some of it's like, man, like, what if you had this fixed before? Diggs was obviously struggling. And maybe it was because he was the best option because the other guys weren't living up to the expectation, the transfers living up or something like that. I don't know. But to play through the injury that he did and to struggle as much as he did, it's just unfortunate because there was a lot of heat that came his way. And I remember hearing about his issues, or at least his struggles with the injuries that he was dealing with during the season. But I was like, well, it must not be as bad if he's still going and still playing and still trying to figure it out. I don't know if that's that choice or, if it's something that, it's not that serious, whatever it could be. I mean, there's a lot of different options there. But overall, I was just like, man, I don't know. I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't like when you have, because even Hunter Holland last year kind of had this a little bit where he was injured all year. You could tell. And they were having to pump him full of pain meds and everything just to keep him going. It just seems iffy to me is all. But again, there could be a lot more to it than I even understand or I even realize. Could be stuff that means so much differently than what I even can understand, but it just seems like it continues to be kind of an unfortunate thing. But either way, it's good to know that they're still going to try to move forward. They're still adding some good pieces. And it'll also be interesting to see who's coming back because there may be some players that you really want back and maybe have been dealing with injury that could come back. I mean, like there's guys like Will McIntyre. I feel like he's been here for 8 years, but he can technically come back another year if he wanted to. Does Brady Tiger come back? That's going to be an interesting thing. Does Kendall Diggs come back? How does that look? So there's going to be a lot of questions that need to be answered when it comes to the Razorbacks and the baseball team, but I guess we'll have to wait and see how all that plays out. But speaking of the Razorbacks and speaking of wearing that Razorback apparel, how about you give our folks over there at Alumni Hall a call or check out their website at nattystatesports.com/Alumni Hall. Because when you do that, you'll be able to see all of the different apparel that they have to offer for all of you Razorback fans. They have some of the nicest polo shirts that you could ever imagine. We're talking about Johnny O. We're talking about Peter Millar. We're talking about Columbia. We're talking about Nike. They got it all. And in fact, I just got a couple pictures the other day from their manager that showed off exactly what they got going on there in store. So if you're looking to have new stuff for the Razorback football season upcoming, or maybe basketball, or maybe baseball, whatever it is, they have it. They have polos, they have shirts, they have jerseys. I mean, they probably even have overalls. I think they do actually have overalls, not that I think about it. But hey, listen, if there's apparel out there for the Razorbacks, if Alumni Hall doesn't have it, it doesn't exist. So check them out today. You can go into their store at North College Avenue right there at 3417. Or you can also check them out online at nattystatesports.com/alumni hall. That's nattystatesports.com/alumni hall. But no matter what it is, get your Razorback apparel. Enjoy the ultimate Razorback shopping experience. It is all done through Alumni Hall right here in Fayetteville. Again, nattystatesports.com/alumni hall.
1, 2, 3, let's go!
All Natty, all the time. Powered by Arkansas, for Arkansas. The John Nabors Show is live from the Natty State Sports Studios.
All right, moving on into the next segment of the John Nabors Show. I know that we've talked a lot about Razorback sports and, kind of the updates that's going on with that, as we normally do. But, something I've always wanted to kind of do on this show and also in other ways of my content is not only just to talk about the Razorbacks more often than